Protests all across the U.S. after another U.S. citizen is shot and killed by federal agents in Minneapolis.
Joining us now, immigration attorney Andrew Niartor with the very latest. Andrew, good morning, and thank you for your time today.
Good morning.
All right, this morning we're reporting that there's a large number of federal agents that are going to be leaving Minneapolis alongside with the Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino. Talk a little bit about this de-escalation now from the Trump administration. Is that what is needed right now for that area?
For Minnesota, from Minneapolis, I'm sure this is going to be a very welcome de-escalation. But at the same time, I think it's important to realize what we're not hearing. We're not hearing about any reports of changes in actual ICE policy or actual ICE tactics, either in Minneapolis or in any other city across the country. So I think it's important to realize that, and also to look at everything that's sort of led up to this de-escalation. And if somebody burns down your house, you don't necessarily praise them for walking away from the flames. So I think that we do need to look at the big picture here, and there needs to be at this point some accountability as well. There's been a great deal of damage done to that community, and I think they're going to be looking for some answers going forward. And perhaps other cities are looking at this situation and the de-escalation and Minneapolis and trying to prepare and prevent that from happening in other places.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's the accountability and the trust that has been lost. I wanted to ask you how you see this playing out in the near future in Minneapolis and then all over the country. Because if there is no accountability that people now are demanding, what's next? How do you see it playing out?
In Minneapolis, accountability is definitely going to be an issue. There needs to be accountability for the death of two people, Nicole Good, Alex Pretti. We need to know what happened. Local law enforcement have tried to look into this. Their investigations have been thwarted by ICE and by federal authorities to the point where I believe it was even the district attorney had to open up a tip line online just to try to encourage people to call in or provide videos. When I recall that when Nicole Good was shot, obviously law enforcement was notified and they tried to go to the scene. They were thwarted. They were not allowed to investigate. The ICE agent who actually shot Nicole Good was sort of whisked away and not allowed to be interviewed, which is quite irregular.
I was going to ask, have you ever seen anything of the sort, given the federal, the local, the state? Have you ever seen anything like that before?
It's an interesting point because traditionally this isn't even a topic that would come up. There's always collaboration between federal law enforcement and local. The feds might come in and rely on the local law enforcement to understand the lay of the land, and local law enforcement will also very often call on federal authorities to help with resources. But we've seen a real erosion of that in Minneapolis, really to the detriment of public safety. And I think that there's a lot of concern that erosion, that threat to public safety is something that could spread to other cities if ICE decides to use those same tactics and now just move their operations someplace else.
I've seen on social media, Andrew, a lot of content coming out with advice or guidance on what people should do if they are approached by ICE. Given that you're an immigration attorney, are there basics if they ask you for your passport, if they ask you for stuff, if they want to come into your house, what could someone say in that situation?
Well, that's a very interesting point, because up until now, the advice that people have been giving members of the community to business owners has been what the law is, and that is that if ICE comes to your place of business, if they come to your home, you do not need to allow them to come inside if they do not have a judicial warrant, a warrant signed by a judge. And that has been the advice that everybody has been giving. But now it's kind of up in the air, because we just learned last week through a whistleblower that there is a memo that came out from ICE essentially authorizing ICE agents to enter private homes without a judicial warrant, without anything signed.
How can they do that legally?
That's a good question, something that will certainly play out in the courts. But what ICE is now saying is that they can use what's called an administrative warrant, which is not reviewed or signed by a judge. And an administrative warrant is essentially ICE authorizing themselves to forcefully enter a home. And so this memo is now authorizing ICE agents to essentially not comply with the Fourth Amendment, with some bedrock principles and rights that we have as individuals and as business owners. And so the advice that we're giving members of the community is now, it's not really clear on, well, it's clear what the law is. What's not clear is whether ICE is going to be complying with the law, which makes it very hard to advise clients and members of the community.
It seems like a slippery slope because it's almost like these administrative warrants are now, oh, so everybody's getting educated by lawyers and everything else about what their rights are, and they're exercising those rights. Well, now we're going to do administrative warrants, not judicial warrants, to kind of thwart those efforts of educating people. So what happens then when people just going into homes without these warrants? What does that mean? Because I said slippery slope. Maybe that's not the right term.
That's the right term.
I'm trying to get that. You're the immigration attorney. How are you seeing all this playing out?
We've seen it in Minneapolis. We've seen the videos of ICE breaking down doors of people's private homes, not only breaking down doors, but breaking down doors and bringing out U.S. citizens, later acknowledging they got the wrong guy. And so I think that that's the sort of thing that we've actually seen happen already. And so we're really on edge because this is certainly going to spread if they continue to use this policy of using administrative warrants.
What changes with Tom Homan now showing up in Minneapolis and with Bovino gone, does anything change? Because I think the last thing any other city in this country wants is what's going on in Minneapolis, obviously. What changes when you have Tom Homan on the ground?
It's a cosmetic change. Tom Homan is responsible for most of these use of force policies, and so I don't expect that cosmetic change is really going to make much of a difference on the ground. And right now, people can be advised of what their rights are, but it's little comfort to know that you're exercising your rights if you're concerned about whether ICE is going to acknowledge those rights and whether ICE is going to engage in tactics, including lethal tactics, against people who are lawfully exercising their right to protest.
All right, speaking of those rights, we have seen protests here in San Diego. What rights would you tell the San Diego community who's watching and they do want to protest? What are their rights to do that?
Sure. Protesting is a fundamental right guaranteed under the First Amendment to the Constitution. People have the right to protest. They have the right to gather, to speak out, to record, including recording law enforcement. They can't obstruct, but they can certainly record anything that's in public, on the street, in the sidewalk, in public areas. So I think the most important thing is for people to remain informed of what's going on, share information, and know what their rights are, and be proud of those rights and exercise those rights, but also with caution, because I think a lot of the conversation has shifted from what are my rights to, well, I know what my rights are they going to be honored? And I think that that's the sort of difficult conversation that people like perhaps the families of Nicole Good and Alex Pretty, who were killed in Minneapolis, that's probably what they're thinking right now.
It's a pretty heavy statement right there, I'll tell you what. Andrew Nietor, immigration attorney, we thank you for the expertise.
Thank you.